Hi everyone, and welcome to our 8th lesson in our English language reading GCSE study series. If you haven't seen any of these videos so far, what I'm trying to do is give you a toolkit of everything that you need to be successful in the reading sections of your English language exams. What I mean by the reading section is comprehension of the extracts that you need to read, being able to sort of analyze those extracts, evaluate those extracts, potentially compare those extracts for the questions where comparison is important. And so if that sounds like something useful to you, stick around. Over the last 7 weeks, we've gone through how to analyze language devices, analyze words, analyze structure, pick out and think about the ideas, perspectives, thoughts, and feelings of characters or writers within the extracts. We've looked at the difference between comprehension, analysis, and evaluation as question types. And now we're going through how to plan various different answers within the reading section. So we've gone through how to plan a language analysis question. We've gone through how to plan a structural analysis question. Today, we're going to be looking at how to plan an evaluation question. So we'll go down to that section. Now I have sort of in inverted commas put this as a question 4 type question, which is mostly really referring to AQA syllabus, but whether you're AQA or Cambridge or Edexcel or OCR, you still have evaluation questions. The question will end with something like, to what extent do you agree, or explain how far you agree, or how far do you agree with this statement, or just things like that, basically asking you how much or little you agree, okay? They're called evaluation questions. Now, as the name evaluation doesn't suggest at all, actually, what you actually need to do in an evaluation question is you need to form a judgment. And what that means is obviously you have to say either I agree or I disagree, or for most people, I would recommend that you go with I somewhat agree or I somewhat disagree, okay? Now, for some of the exam boards, it literally says write why you agree with it. In which case, if it says you must agree or you must disagree, then obviously you just got to agree or disagree. But for the vast majority of the questions, and oh, I nearly died. For the vast majority, my chair just fell back. Sorry about that. For the vast majority of exam boards, you don't have to fully agree or fully disagree, in which case it's better to somewhat agree. So you can show off to the examiner that you know both sides of the argument. That's basically the reason why you would do this. Okay, so what does that look like in real terms? You're going to need to look at how many marks a question is worth and how much time you have for the question. But for almost all of the exam boards, my recommendation is going to be 3 to 4 paragraphs for these answers. You probably don't want to worry about an introduction. I don't recommend an introduction. If your exam board says you need an introduction, then obviously you want to write one, but I'm not aware of any of the exam boards asking for an introduction as part of the mark scheme. Instead, what you're going to do is you're going to have your main paragraphs, which start with what I just call a mini judgment, basically. So the mini judgment is simply, I agree or I disagree or whatever, yeah? Or I somewhat agree or somewhat disagree. As I said, as much as possible, I would probably try and land on I somewhat agree or I somewhat disagree. But the way it might work out is you might do a paragraph where you agree and then a paragraph where you disagree, which obviously then on balance creates that you somewhat agree or you somewhat disagree, right? But once you are into the main paragraphs, you're going to create with that mini judgment, I agree or I disagree with the statement. You're then going to go into your evidence, obviously. Now, evidence for evaluation needs to be at least 2 bits. 2 bits, maybe 3 bits if you can. And if possible, with the evaluation questions, unless it specifically says just look at language or just look at structure, which again, I don't think any of these exam boards do, then you want to ideally try and combine some language with some structure if you can. That's the most impressive option. Same as any other question, you are still going to include a bit of techniques. You're still going to try and explain how you have formed your judgment based on your analysis of those quotes. But instead of just getting stuck on one quote and really focusing in on that, you're trying to sort of bring together 2 or 3 quotes, right? So an overall impression that is created is effectively what you want for this one. I'm trying to think other than that, what the major things are that you need in the to what extent do you agree questions. I'm not sure there's a huge amount else that we need. So the finishing point is I would include a brief conclusion. Now, I want to be really clear here. Most of the exam boards, the same as they don't say that you need an introduction, they don't typically say you need a conclusion either. So why would I want you to do that? The reason I want you to do that is because you can use a sentence starter like, on balance, I somewhat agree with X and I disagree with Y. Quite often you'll have more than one thing you're agreeing or disagreeing with. So then you just put your final points. The reason why I agree with X is because blah, blah. And the reason I disagree with X is blah, blah, which is why overall I somewhat agree, or which is why overall I came to my conclusion. Yeah. Equally, I disagree with Y because blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Now, the reason I think that would be good is because it just leaves the examiner knowing exactly where you stand with everything. And it leaves the examiner knowing that you definitely formed an evaluation. You definitely formed a judgment, and you sum it up at the end nicely like that. So that is what's going on with that. So I'm trying to remember if I did a model answer for question 4. I feel like I didn't, which is why I think it would be great for me to actually go into a different document for a second. And it's my model answers document. Model paragraphs and essays. Template. I can't believe I can't find it. Sorry. AQA template. Huh. That's really weird. All right, well, let's look in Charlotte's for a minute then. Maybe it's in here. I don't think it is though. Nope. This is becoming a bit of a shambles now. Model answers. All right. Sorry about this. I might have to just pause the video for a second because I'm struggling to find what I need. Bear with me 1 second here. Sorry about that, people. I found it pretty soon after pausing, but it's because I didn't call it a template, which I'm going to update now, because I always call everything that I make as a template. So don't know what happened there. Anyway, so for language question 4, we have this bit of model answer. Can't remember if I've gone through this with you before. If I have, I do apologize, but I just want to show how it's a good way of sort of landing overall on the judgment that I was saying about. So just going to paste it in here. And this is for the piece, one of the more recent pieces about the Hartog family, which are the greengrocers. And the question, roughly speaking, was Hartog is cruel and all our sympathy is with Alice. Those are basically what you had to agree or disagree with. So I think both Alice and Hardtop are deserving of our sympathy. So it doesn't all go to Alice. Although his detailed wife tries to protest, Hardtop is determined that Alice is going out in the wind, rain, and darkness to look for whatever fell off the van roof. Our sympathy for Alice seems assured as the writer tells us that to Alice, the van seemed to be moving away rapidly, with the adverb rapidly suggesting Hardtop's careless lack of compassion in leaving Alice isolated and abandoned. However, Alice's acceptance of this suggests that she is used to her father's uncompromising and harsh ways, so she stoically accepts the discomfort and pain of the wind and rain as her duty. Later, the writer uses the conspiratorial relationship between mother and daughter through dialogue as a way perhaps to create sympathy for Hardtop. Having successfully returned with the flowers, he overhears Alice say to her mother that it was only a bunch of chrysanthemums, meaning that it was nothing. It was hardly worth the trouble he caused her to find them, that they are not important. Alice felt safe saying this to her mother, but Hardtop appeared at the very moment she was speaking. Since the chrysanthemums are his livelihood, his business, he is indignant and angry. Although confrontational, Hardtop is not cruel. He is just a frustrated, struggling poor man trying to earn a living against the odds, and as such is deserving of our sympathy. So this is a great paragraph for one of our main paragraphs. And do you see how it falls on some mini judgments, like I said? Mini judgments. So our sympathy doesn't all go to Alice. That's one of the mini judgments. And Hardtop is not cruel. He is just frustrated. So again, a mini judgment. Yeah. And there's evidence here which helps to support these mini judgments. And again, notice that we don't just have one piece of evidence, we have several bits of evidence which are being explored together to form the judgment. So that's what you want to do for question 4 in a nutshell. You want to spend some time deciding whether you agree, disagree, or somewhat agree. As I said, I ideally say for most of you, you want to somewhat agree or somewhat disagree if you can. You want 3 to 4 paragraphs. You don't need an introduction of any real sort. You just dive in with your mini judgments. Make it clear to the examiner in each paragraph whether you agree or disagree or somewhat disagree. Make it clear to the examiner so that they can see that easily. 2 to 3 bits of evidence. Try to get some structure in if you can. That's one thing I would have liked to have seen in this model. Just a little bit of structure would be good, but not the end of the world. You can get full marks even without structure here, unless the mark scheme obviously says, or the question obviously says you must use structure, then obviously you need to. And yeah, you would just form a brief conclusion at the end, just to really show off to the examiner on balance what your judgment is, or how much you agree or disagree. That's everything for question 4, really. It's one of the bigger questions for most of the exam boards, so just bear that in mind. If it is one of the larger ones in your reading section, dedicate a bit more time and effort to it, because it's better to try and get full marks on those bigger questions than to spend too long on the smaller questions and miss out a chance of getting a good mark on the bigger questions, okay? So just be smart with your exam timing. Hope you enjoyed that video. If you liked it, please do consider liking and thumbs up and commenting on this video, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you.